I saw your video on whether or not the New Testament requires pacifism. Could you do a follow-up? I became a Christian a short time ago and am stationed in the military. Are there distinctions to be made in texts, such as the Sermon on the Mount or the Ten Commandments, i.e. do not murder? Thanks.
Yes. So to follow up on that, I would say if you're in the American military now, you are far more likely to have your career end in wreckage through things that have nothing to do with the military part, right? So, leading women into combat, or approving of being forced to approve of some sexual malfeasance, or putting up with that kind of thing. And so I tell, basically, because the military is a command and control kind of organization, liberals have gravitated to it as a place where social engineering can go much more quickly, right? So because you just tell everybody what to do. Telling everybody in a city what to do might have an impact on the next elections and whatever. In the military, you just do it. So I would say, I tell young men in the military to wake up every day prepared to wreck your career over whatever it was they told you to do. That's most likely to be something that is an agenda item of the left today. But it could be a traditional old school war crime. You're told to do something that is against the law of God, against the Geneva Convention and so forth, and you should simply refuse and be discharged or whatever. As regards the fighting itself, when Jesus is giving us the Sermon on the Mount, you have to ask, what is the universe of discourse? What realm is he talking about? I think he's talking about small town village squabbles. Someone hits you on one cheek, you turn the other cheek, you diffuse the quarrel, you don't retaliate, you don't participate in feuds, you may not do that. I do not think the universe of discourse anticipated you standing on the street corner, a panicked woman running by, and then 30 seconds later a homicidal maniac with a meat cleaver running by. Which way did she go? I don't think Jesus was anticipating us having to deal with that scenario. So what is being assumed? What is Jesus telling us? Well, we ought not to be personally vindictive. We ought not to personally retaliate. We ought not to do anything like that. But if we had to step in to save that woman from that homicidal maniac, you do what it takes.
If somebody's looking for a textual distinction, it seems like last time we talked about it, didn't you dive into the bit of Romans where the magistrate is specifically being designated as a deacon of God and not to carry the sword in vain?
Yes, in Romans 12, there's a long stretch of Romans 12 there that indicates that the Apostle Paul was an astute student of the Lord Jesus. It's very Sermon on the Mount-ish, that section in Romans 12. And then he concludes it with saying, don't take vengeance. But he doesn't say because vengeance is wrong. He says because vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Don't take personal vengeance because vengeance is mine. Well, then in the original, there's no chapter 13. It just goes right into the next section. And God has established the existing authorities as his deacons of wrath. Right? So the one who says vengeance is mine says, and by the way, I've got deputies. I've got people I've deputized to do this. They're not given the sword for nothing. Okay, so if I'm told to make room for God's wrath at the end of chapter 12, and then in chapter 13 he says the police have the wrath wagon. Well, what do I do? Yeah.
So if somebody is in the Army, sworn to defend our Constitution, has he been then designated by Romans 13 to be this kind of...
He's deputized. If it's a lawful war, and he is permitted to assume that it is unless he has manifest evidence that it's not a lawful war. Just war theory is there's two parts of just war theory. There's jus ad bellum and jus in bello. Justice going to war and justice in the conduct of war. Every individual soldier has to be aware of jus in bello. You don't shoot the prisoners, you don't rape the women, you don't. Jus in bello is something that everybody has to be up to speed on. Jus ad bellum, that's what the people making the decision to go to war have to be. They're responsible for that. So the average foot soldier doesn't have to investigate for himself whether the communications intercepted by the CIA were bogus, accurate, fair. Yeah, that's Congress's job. That's the president's job. That's not his job.